Hello, this is Platform Disco. Today, you will discover more about human task automation. We hear about a cluster of 500 companies, half of them being based on a very small island in Denmark. We hear about how solutions are replacing customization, a way that the industry in manufacturing was always going about. And the driver to get there is moving from project to product or solution. We hear about ecosystem play and how collaboration across the ecosystem is really critical for what we call complex B2B. We hear about education moving from early adopters to early majority. And last but not least, a strong platform brand that can play platform 3 times in a row. And now back to the dance floor. Welcome to Platform Disco. Discover the beautiful world of business model, strategy, tech, and the humans behind platform ecosystems. Today, a wonderful guest, Jesper Kildegaard Poulsen from Universal Robots. My name is Alex Pesek, and I'm one of the DJs. And over there in Denver is
Peter Evans. Welcome, everybody. Looking forward to this conversation.
Great. Welcome, Jesper.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
That's exciting. Today, this is a really future edition of the Platform Disco. And maybe to start off, what is great for the audience to understand who is Jesper and what is Jesper doing actually?
Yeah, so I'm from Universal Robots, as you said. I have a background in technology. I've been working in software and data all my career. In the past 10 years, I've learned that we need to be so much better at offering whatever the customer really wants. So I've been working on innovation, so technology innovation, but also business model innovation. And that had led me through a number of different companies, Rockwell Automation, Schneider Electric, Hitachi, and now Universal Robots. And I'm here at Universal Robots really to use those traits, right, to try and see how can we actually innovate the way that we go to market, the way that we use our technologies. So I'm with Universal Robots. I don't really build robots, but I actually figure out how do we actually take this really great product and do even more with it together with our great ecosystem.
Now, obviously, it's interesting to understand a little bit more of your background. What has brought you to Universal Robots, which is a very special company?
Yeah, so one of the really interesting things with the Universal Robot is that we are really good at building this robot arm. We'll come back to what that really is all about, but really we have a huge ecosystem around us. And one of the things that we may not have been so good at in the past is really to utilize this ecosystem or even make sure that our ecosystem is successful. So what really brought me to Universal Robots was really to figure out how can we work together with our ecosystem? How can we work together and build new business models, build new ways of going out and offering new services and offerings to our customers for our common benefit? I thought that was a really exciting opportunity that I couldn't miss out on, and that's why I'm here.
Cool. Now, Universal Robots, the name is the program basically, but most people will not know the history of Universal Robots and how you landed where you are today. Could you outline some of the founding story and the journey that you've taken in this company?
Yeah. I'll happy, but let's start by actually what are we really offering? So when we talk about a robot, it's not just people have many ideas about what a robot really is. What we do is what we call a cobot. And a cobot is really for a collaborative robot. So the whole idea behind that, and where our 3 founders that started the company 19 years ago, they really had this idea that let's take a robot. People may know the industrial robots that you see in the big auto manufacturing plants that move cars around. And could we build a robot that actually can work together with humans, that can work together with people and actually automating some of these repetitive tasks that we really don't want people to do, to make sure that they can be more effective and also have more healthy kind of working. So that's what started these 3 guys 19 years ago. They were working together at our local university. and really thought that maybe there's something there. And then with collaborating with the environment and all this stuff, they started Universal Robots, and we from that defined that category of cobots, and have grown from there to where we are today.
So Jesper, where are these robots manufactured?
Yeah, this is the great story. So the company is based in Denmark, and is founded and headquartered in a city in Denmark called Odense, which is in the middle of Denmark on an island called Fyn. And here we have a technical university. Actually, it's a university to do everything, but here we have a robotic department. That's actually where it all spun out from. So we're based in Odense in the middle of Denmark. We develop it here. So the majority of our development resources is based in Odense in Denmark, but also the manufacturing. So obviously we have a lot of manufacturing of components happening around the world, and we're bringing that in. But the complete assembly of the cobot is happening in Odense, and then we're distributing it from Odense to the whole world.
Can you describe a few things that the robots do? You mentioned that they work collaboratively with humans. What are some of the use cases for these robots?
The main industry that we service is really the manufacturing industry. But obviously, what's important with the cobot and the name Universal is it's a platform. So in principle, we sell a robot arm platform that people can do with whatever they want. So it's relatively easy to get started and program and make it work, whatever you want to do. So we have use cases where people are using it to make pizzas. We have use cases where they use it to make video recordings and have steady camera movements. And I think the creativity is really the limitation in where you can use that. But the main use case for our cobot is really the industrial space, the manufacturing industry. So you'll typically see that with the companies in actually any sizes that are producing things. And here you need to imagine things that are repetitive by nature. So where people are doing a repetitive task, but it's also tasks that a human could be doing. So we don't have robots that can lift a car and move a several 100-kilo car around. We don't have that kind of robots. We have robots that can be next to a person, a robot that can be without a cage. So it is designed to be very safe. So if a person comes close to it, they will not get harmed, it will stop, and all of this. So it really can work collaborative with the robot. And then creativity really is the limit of that. But obviously then there are some certain very successful use cases where we see a lot of deployment of this, and then a great variety.
And just one more question follow-up. You produce the physical robot, but do you also develop the software, or is that done by third parties? Or both?
So obviously the robot has a software platform and an OS. And we develop our OS, and the OS is known for being user-friendly and extendable. So why we have a quite successful ecosystem is because we really have this very flexible and open OS where there is all kind of interfaces for them to extend the capability of it. But we developed the platform. We come with the hardware part, which is really the robot arm. Then we come with the whole software stack, the OS that can do many, many different things. And then it's our ecosystem and our customers that builds the actual applications. Mm-hmm. So, and then customer, they would need to automate, let's say, end-of-line palletizing. That means taking a box from a conveyor belt coming out and putting that on a pallet. That is something that surprisingly is happening very manual around the world. So people are standing there taking that boxes and moving it over and putting it on a pallet, which we can all imagine is not very healthy. It's very repetitive. It can be relatively heavy boxes that you need to move. So that's an obvious case for palletizing and for robots. And there we will see it's our partners that deliver this solution. It's the different type of partners that have taken our cobot and put it into what we call a solution. And then they're going out and selling these solutions to the customers and implementing that with the customers.
So this
Correct.
really is a platform play. And can you just elaborate a little bit more on the partners? It's not just one kind, right? You have systems integrators, you have software developers, and you also have companies that provide different types of extensions to the robot arm so it can do things like suction cups and things of that nature. So your platform or your ecosystem is actually fairly complex.
You're right. You're right. So we have many types of partners, and you could probably categorize them, segment them in many different ways. But at least we have tried to simplify it in some way. So to start with the last example you get, so we have the partners that are we call them technology partners. They're the partners that build things for our cobot. So it can be whatever you put at the end of the cobot, a gripper, a welding torch, or something like that. So these are the companies that are really good at that. These are also companies that typically are maybe have done all kind of tools for many different kind of industries, and now they also have adapted to that. And here, really, because we have all these great interfaces, we allow them to really make new, really interesting and innovative products, both in terms of mechanical interfaces, electrical interfaces, and software interfaces. So they can really be creative and innovative in terms of building cool products. Taking the products that they have and taking our products together, that starts to become a solution or an application. That means that if you go out and find a partner that have designed a gripper, and you put that on our robot, then suddenly you have a robot that can grip something. But then whatever it should grip, that is then a different set of partners. That will be what you call the system integrator, the partners that are really good at listening to the customer, understanding their needs, and then programming the robot and the accessories to do the task that they need to do. Then we have other partners, which is actually, I would argue, is probably a level up of the system integrators. They're the one that actually say, well, take the example of the palletizer. They're the one that said, well, actually, there is so many people out there that want to put boxes on pallets. Could we actually make a product out of it? Could we take a cobot? Could we take a gripper? Could we take other things that they need and then actually make a product out of it that they will call a cobot palletizer? And then they sell that as a single product so that the customer can come in and buy that specific product. We call them OEMs, which makes kind of good sense. And that's probably the main category of partners that we have. So the one that do the technology that kind of is adding capabilities, adjacencies to our cobot offering that are being used by the integrators that make custom integration, custom solutions. And then we have the OEMs that really build turnkey products that can go out there and be deployed, hopefully very easy and with low risk by the end customers.
Cool. I'd like to go back one more time before we dig deeper into the history. What I think is astonishing, one, it's an island, as you said, but then you also talked about this university and this specialization in robots, not cobots yet back then. Tell us a little bit how come on an island this whole university popped up and the spin-off actually could happen. Well, how were the couple of steps that happened back then?
So I think we're in Denmark. So we're a small country, right? So one of the things that we pride ourselves to be fairly good at is to collaborate. So we're pretty good at collaborating between academia, between industry, and between public, right? So in that sense, that's not uncommon to do that. So, but what we saw on this island here, I don't know, quite many years back, is that we had a very big shipyard here, which was quite successful. It was owned by Maersk, that many people probably will know, and we're building quite a lot of the big ships that they have, oil tankers and container vessels and all of this. And very successful in doing that. But the problem, of course, was that we had these very big shipyards out in the east that could come in with very cheap labor. And of course, building a ship is quite labor intensive. So that's really a resource that is adding a lot of cost to the production of that. So they were competing with that. And they quite early on in the whole robotic era identified that robots probably could be a thing. So they invested quite a lot in being and understanding how robots could help them in shipyards. But obviously, building a ship is not just installing a robot. It's not like building a car, right? You can see if you serially produce a car, you do it in many numbers. But if you do a ship, there's a lot of customizations, and you maybe only do a few of each, and all of this, right? So it's a different beast. So they really invested a lot in doing that, but also understood that they couldn't just do it by having their own R&D team kind of scale up and build that. They needed to collaborate, which is they started collaborating with the local university. And then, of course, by normal collaboration, sponsoring and all of this stuff, really started building that ecosystem around that. And that meant that they got a lot of cool, clever robotic engineers coming out of the university that they could hire into to the shipyard to help develop that. But they also then actually start fostering a lot of new people coming and being innovative and coming up with great ideas. One of them being what we have today, right? Universal Robots, having great ideas, creative ideas, and doing all this. So it kind of started that ecosystem of robotic ingenuity that was there, building small startups. And today we have what we call a robo cluster, which is national, but it's mainly centered around this city in the middle of Denmark. And I think there is around 500 companies part of this cluster today, and around I think a bit less than half of them are based here in this city. So
super interesting. I didn't realize that the robot industry grew out of the need to try to make the shipping industry continue to be competitive.
At least in Odense, right? Sure. So the robot industry in general is, of course, a lot of more stuff, but at least how it kind of became a robot cluster is really part of that, or at least.
And that's what I really like. That's why I want to highlight it. We in Europe really struggle with scaling, and you see many clusters here and there. But this is a beautiful example where a very entrepreneurial mindset initiated it, and actually grew up to 500, which is pretty amazing. And now you're one of the leading clusters around the world, and you still have made in Europe. I think the majority of what you produce is literally, as you said before, produced here, because you got the talent here, you got the service companies, and actually we're recording you sitting in the brand new headquarters. So that means it's still invested in and around here. Maybe tell us a little bit about this headquarter, which is very, very special, and also almost part of your identity, also in terms of how the brand comes across. Maybe a couple of words on that.
Maybe, yeah, we're happy to, but maybe taking a step back as well. So what happened around 10 years ago, I think it was in 15, was that Universal Robots was acquired by an American company. So we were acquired by a company called Teradyne. And Teradyne is a chip test company, so that's really their main business. And they kind of diversified the portfolio by going into the robotic space. So it's important here to realize that, yes, we are a Danish founded company, but we're actually American owned, fully owned by an American company. But I think that even more proves a lot of things by we having our headquarters being built here, right? So Teradyne and Universal Robots actually decided to invest quite a lot in building probably the biggest headquarter that we have in Odense to really house the robotic companies. So we have 2 robotic companies now that Teradyne have acquired that are based here in Odense, and we still remain are being headquarters in Odense, even though our parent company is American based and obviously have headquarters in the US. So we still remain here. We still have our production here. We still have the majority of the people working in Denmark, in Odense, and even our R&D people. And I think it's not a surprise to say that the Danes or Western in general are not necessarily the cheapest labor you can find. So it is clearly expensive, right? And we need to really be there to provide that value. And one of the things that we're providing is that culture of being adaptive, being innovative, and trying to get things done in new and interesting ways.
If you look at your brand, it's very distinctive. Peter and I were at Hannover Messe, Hannover Fair, and we could see most stands you're a cobot. As you're defined the category, you're the market leader, and you have a very distinctive gray and light blue design. And also your head office is very design oriented. So to me, it's a great example that B2B and industrial doesn't mean it has to look ugly. It has to excite in terms of using the products, etc. And that we see that more and more often. Also, other players in the field start recognizing that human beings aren't business and all of a sudden don't have human interaction needs. And when they come home, all of a sudden they're humans again. So I think you're a prime example that B2B can be beautiful, can be exciting, can be simple. Tell us a little bit about the brand and what defines Universal, what you always try to repeat and ensure to deliver before we dive into the applications of the cobot one more time.
But I think here it's really also important to understand that, again, it's collaborative. We're working next to people. So it needs to be friendly, right? And that's why it's kind of, we are a B2B company, but we really need to be understood by the people it's working next to. So we are a B2B2C company, if you want to take that term from the e-commerce space in some way. So in that way, it needs to be pleasant, right? So if you look at some of our industrial competitors, colleagues out there, they look mean and dangerous, right? And they probably are, but they probably really want to look like that, right? Because that's they can lift a car, right? But here we have something that are working next to people. It needs to kind of look friendly. We even had competitors some time back that actually put eyes on them to do that. So there is this psychological thing you actually want to do to make it appealing and you understand them and then you're not afraid of them and all this stuff. So you're right. The design is in no way a coincidence. It's something that we actually are spending quite a lot of time on. And I think with our newest generation, we kind of have polished it even more. Even more rounded corners, even more pleasant. You kind of almost want to go and touch it, and all of this. But that is really, really important. And then, of course, we are Scandinavians, and Scandinavians is also a lot about design. So for us, it's really important that we think simplicity, we think design. We have all of that, and that's our headquarters. You can see we have trees, we have concrete, we have all kind of stuff. So it's really about having an open environment where we have a lot of glass. You can easily feel that there's open doors and there is a room for open communication and free ideas and that kind of thing. So that's really where we're coming from.
Yeah, digging back into the applications, I mean, you have an interesting name, Universal Robot, which I guess conveys the fact that it can be used anywhere and in many different applications. And you spoke briefly about some of the use cases. So are you selling mostly to very large enterprises, or are you finding this also can be applied in smaller to medium-sized enterprises? Kind of what is your customer mix, and how do you engage, especially from an ecosystem strategy, with these different types of customers?
Yeah. So when we started out, and again, I've only been in Universal Robots for 2 years. So of course, I'm also what I know of the history. But because we came out with a robot that, if you talk to the old school robot company, was not really a robot because it wasn't big and all the stuff. It was kind of a toy robot. I think they probably called it that. We started with probably the SME market, the small and mid-sized market. They were the one that kind of saw the innovative people out there, the one that kind of wanted to go out and really explore this and do that. So we very much have grown out of the small to medium enterprise segment. But today, this is very capable, robust robots that are being used in any size company. And if we look at a split in terms of where do we sell, it's very evenly distributed. So we have all the big companies out there that are in manufacturing use our cobots in one way or the other, and we have many small companies as well that are using it. And I think today we are seeing it's easier to get into the bigger companies and automate and do that because they really understand the value of automation. And it's somewhat more difficult to get into the small mid-sized one because it's a huge investment, right? And it costs money, and how to get started, how to ensure you utilize that investment fully if it's your first robot investment. So it's shifting a bit, and we are kind of trying to service all in some way and make sure that we deliver what they need.
Well, it's a huge market, as you know. There's small, medium-sized enterprises are the largest firms. They employ the most people, and they often go out and buy trucks, right? So this is the same scale of buying a truck. So, I mean, they
But
usually can
and
afford.
I agree, and I think it's back to what we talked about, where our partner network. So the robotic industry and the automation industry in general is really built around system integrators. So automation has typically been custom built. So it means you want to automate something, you go to an engineering company that can go in and analyze that, make some drawings, make some simulations, program stuff, and many hours later you will get a solution and you will get that working. And that's how we have come to where we are. And if you look at the traditional robotic industry that are automating a auto manufacturing plant, so that's kind of a big thing, right? You need to do it like that, and it's always custom, and there's a lot of adjustments. But if you take a small to medium-sized company, we talked about palletizing before, and we have an example of on our customer case with a small company in Germany, I believe, that are bottling wine for different wine producers. So they are 10, 20 people company, so very small company. So but what they're doing is companies that have made wine, they go to this company and then they get it bottled and put in boxes and all this stuff. So you can imagine when it comes to this facility and you have these boxes coming out with, 6 bottles you have in a case, and you need to take that and put it onto a pallet. That's not easy, right? And having people standing there and doing that again and again and again, yeah. That's not good for people, right? We really don't want people to do that. And this is a very small company, but they actually realized that, this is good. So but of course, if we came to them, or our system integrator network came to them and said, that's a great idea, let's go in and engineer this and figure out what we want to do and program this and all stuff, that would have been expensive, right? And it would probably be really, really scary, because you would have an engineer coming in and asking all kind of crazy questions that you wouldn't know, because you're just good at bottling putting wine in bottles and putting that in boxes and moving that out, right? But actually, because we then have this ecosystem of solution providers, we had a solution provider that actually could come in and say, you know what, I have a cobot palletizing product for you. And you can go in here, you can put it in here. It's very, very easy. You can easily go in and program it. So whenever you have a new producer coming in with a bit slightly different size bottles, different size boxes, you can easily, quickly adopt it. And it's very flexible for you. And suddenly they actually can automate, and suddenly they actually can go and spend their limited resources in something that is not damaging their backs, and making sure that they can actually be productive. Yeah. And for them, they are a positive case for us. They're very successful. So they've seen the value in investing in something that is not necessarily that cheap, and still they do that.
Yeah. So where are we on the technology adoption curve for cobots? So you mentioned 19 years ago the company was founded. So we almost have 2 decades of experience. I would imagine you engaged early adopters at first. These are companies that are more innovative. They've got innovation programs and they're looking at but are you seeing the industry shift to maybe early majority? Where are we on the technology adoption curve? And then what does that mean for your ecosystem? You mentioned all this specialized talent that you need necessarily for figuring out how to deploy, but are we getting to the stage where you can actually leverage platforms and actually do digital sales, or is it too early still for moving in that direction?
It's a very good question. And so one thing is what I said earlier about this industry is about doing custom builds. Mm-hmm. So if you look at it from that angle, it's a mature technology. So everybody out there that are in this space, they will use it. So it's clearly, it's part of their toolbox to use cobots when they customize something. But if we actually say cobots is in there to automate tasks that normal people would do, then the amount of tasks that could be automated out there is enormous. But again, as I said earlier, they will not be automated by a system integrator coming in and doing custom builds every time. They'll be way too expensive and it will not be scalable in any way.
Plus, there's a
So
long
it's
track record, right? They already have a lot of knowledge about how to do this.
exactly, but they need to be able to productize it. And if you are an engineering company that is born to do engineering solutions, you will always look for the most complicated problem to solve and not necessarily for the easy one you have done 100 times before. But that's the productization that needs to happen. And that's the shift that we're seeing right now. And we're seeing more and more of our partners out there and the market in general that sees that, hey, we are at a point now where we actually know so much that we could productize it. So the more visionary, in my view at least, visionary partners out there are starting to productize it, make solutions out of it that actually will go out and be a lot more appealing. It certainly means that where we, a few years back, we're selling all of this on technical capabilities. So how fast can it run? How much can it lift? How easy is it to program and all that stuff? Now suddenly we can talk about how can we actually go out and sell on value. Here we have a product that are so good at taking these boxes and putting that on a pallet, and it's easy to operate for the people on the floor and all this. So we suddenly talk about solving true customer pain and not just about servicing a tech person to solve another problem. And I think here we are on the early part of this journey, right? We're kind of on a chasm that needs to be crossed to going in for this to really scale.
Standard solutions, essentially.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
then
Yes.
there seems to be a lot of education that's still needed by these small and medium-sized enterprises. Your example of the German bottling company is a great one. That's not their expertise. They don't know how robots work, or even how they could enhance their productivity. So what do you do to kind of make it accessible to these small and medium-sized enterprise without having to have an engineering staff or technical sales team that goes out and talks to them directly? Is there a way to digitize this or make it easier to find these solutions and kind of engage at scale, essentially?
I'm glad you asked. So first of all, we have a strong brand. And I think here it's important. So again, remember, we are a platform. So what an end customer needs is not what we deliver. What the end customer needs is the products that our ecosystem is delivering. So you can say, if I come out to this bottling manufacturing saying, hey, shouldn't you use my robot? He wouldn't have a clue what he should use it for, right? That would never work. So I cannot go out and tell him the story about my robot. I need to tell him a story about what my ecosystem have done and how that could service him. So that puts us in that strange situation, right? We need to see how can we go out and utilize our great brand and our great marketing to tell the story, not about how great our cobot is, but actually how great our ecosystem is, of course, powered by our cobot. And that's a shift. That's a shift that we are still learning to figure out how do we really do that really well. But it's really about how can we be successful through our ecosystem being successful. But that's really the mindset change that we're trying to do. So we're changing our messaging. We're adapting our messaging to really promote our solutions. If you go to a trade show today, a few years back, you would come to a trade show and see our great big stand we would have there, and it will show a lot of our robots. But it wouldn't show any applications. It would show our naked robots. We call them naked if they don't have anything around it. Right. They will be moving around and looking all good, and you want to go and touch them because they're nice design and all stuff, but you couldn't see what it would be used for. If you go today, you will only see applications. So we will see our partners be standing there next to us, showing their specific applications. And then we were talking about what all other applications you can do. And that's on the trade show part. But obviously, we're trying to expand that on our digital presence as well. So how can we showcase all this great stuff that our ecosystem is doing? And how can we make sure that when customers are looking for putting pallets or boxes on pallets, how can we make sure that they can come to us and find all the great ecosystem partners we have and not trying to say, well, hey, we have the greatest robot that is the fastest ever and all this stuff. That's not for them. It's about what can our ecosystem do to them.
Great. I have a real life experience. We visited a craft beer brewery and they had a brand new building, fantastic beer. And they selected their gear always in mind, having the quality in mind. And so also the canning facility they set up was was built to protect the product quality. The machine was set up in a way the quality is maintained, and then there was end of line, and there was nothing. And I said, look, how many people do you have? And they're still in the first innings of their expansion. They moved from craft to more mainstream flavors. And they weren't aware that something like a palletizer solution is out there. So I think what is interesting with the move from project to product or solution, your market can expand far more, because there's just no awareness out there that this is almost clickable. It's no longer a project in the classic sense. So the question is, how can you scale this insight that you have even faster? Because people have scarcity of labor. They want high plannable quality. They want to work in dark factories. So how can you scale that even further? Because you're sitting on a nice nugget here.
Yeah, we believe so. We fully agree. But I think this is where the ecosystem again comes in. So if you take the example of your beer manufacturer, where do they go to find new information? And we need to find that. We need to be there to tell them that story, because it doesn't help that I run a Facebook campaign or a LinkedIn campaign talking about cobots. How do I get hold of them? How do I tell them about that? And of course, we can do our part, but it's really important that we have those partners, the partners that are in these areas. And so that's why we actually are working really, really hard on really understanding our partners and really mapping our partners' competencies and capabilities. So we really can actually help them go out and tell that story, and help them identify the ones we're missing, so that we make sure that your brewer in Austria or where they are knows that, hey, they should do cobot palletizing, and they better come to us to look for the best partners out there.
Talking about the cobot, you said it has to be pleasant and nice. I'm here at your webpage, and your purpose states to create a world where people work with robots, not like robots. Our mission is simple: automation for anyone, anywhere. So you're trying to democratize it. Now we do see an influx of the next generation, these humanoid robots, which take this element of those two eyes, which you just pointed out a little bit earlier, to a whole new level, because they look like human beings ultimately. How do you see this bigger market of robots, including cobots, humanoids, mobility robots, etc.? How do you see that unfold, and where will the cobot have a strong, powerful role to play, even though there might be those Optimus or whatever they might be called, these humanoid robots?
Yeah, it's a very interesting development that is happening in this space right now, isn't it? I would say I'm not completely sure. I think that they look so much more human. They really look scary. I think we all have seen Terminator. So in some way, I kind of get a lot more scared from them than I do from the one that I'm bounded to the floor and can't move. So I at least can run from that one. I can't run from these ones. But I think
you watch too much Terminator.
yeah. But I also know how they work. So you better be careful, Alex. No, so I think that there's a room for all of us in this, right? I think first thing, by having all the talks we have about humanoids, it means that everybody talks about robots, which is great, right? So it means that even the brewer that you talked about, they know about robots. And I guess that because Elon have been out there and saying, hey, I have this great robot that you have in several of anywhere in the world, he probably have thought of, how can I use robots in my factory? And probably he don't want to have a humanoid robot standing there and taking the boxes and putting that on pallets. Maybe that's a bit too complicated of a machinery to actually do that simple task. And maybe a robot arm there would actually be somewhat more simpler. It will be simpler to maintain. It will make simpler to actually keep it running, doing the same repetitive task again and again for the next 10 years. That's not the purpose of a humanoid. The purpose of a humanoid is to be generalist that can go around doing a variety of different tasks and support in different tasks, right? So I think there is different purposes for different things. I think there is great adjacency in it, and I actually think, from a personal point of view, that actually it just democratizes the thinking about robots. And again, when we talk about our total addressable market out there, we talk about all the repetitive tasks that we can automate. We're not thinking about taking some of the tasks where a humanoid would be really good at doing it. So in that sense, it's just enormous, right? So I think we welcome it. We think it's interesting. It helps the robot industry evolve, and of course, competitors also challenge us and new ways of thinking. And there's a lot of great AI technology and all this stuff that have come out of the investment put into humanoid that we, of course, take advantage of as well. So
nice.
Good.
Going back to the thought of from project to product or solution, how can you imagine such a palletizing or another welding solution? Is that something that is so agreed amongst the partners that there is a price tag or a price range on it, so that you're really lowering the transaction cost, searching, offering, bidding, what we call CPQ, which is configuring and getting a quotation? Tell us a little bit about the scaling and digitalization aspect of this.
Yep, well, you're completely right. And this is actually the things that are happening now. These specific applications are being standardized, and some of them can be very standardized. I think the most standardized solution we have out there is a welding cell. So this is really partners that have taken a cobot, put it on a table, and then you have your welding equipment, your energy sources and all of this that you have. So a customer can go out and buy a welding cell at a fixed price. And many of our partners actually promote that price publicly or at trade shows or wherever you will find them. And then they will get that package delivered on a pallet. And we have several examples where they say that the customers have gone through the e-learning modules and all this stuff before the pallet arrives. They plug in the power and they do their first weld within a few hours. So see, that's a turnkey solution. That's something where you just plug in the power. You've taken an online training course and you're up and running, and there you go. Right, that's brilliant. And that's what we want to see. How can we do that in any kind of application domain that we want to do? We talked about it, the palletizing here earlier. That's another one that are kind of close, and maybe it's as close as it can get. So it's very standardized, but obviously the conveyor belts, the way that boxes are moved through and all this stuff is always a bit flexible. So there is always the need of this last mile kind of configuration. But as long as we kind of have productized this so much that that's kind of just part of the onboarding wizard, right? You go through step number 1. What is the size of the conveyor belt? And then you go through, done. So palletizers is also a good example where we start seeing now that our partners are coming up with fixed prices. So because the last customization is so standard that they know what in average what the cost will be, they can come out and say, well, we can deliver you a palletizing solution for 90,000 euros, and that includes everything, and you will be up and running in 3 weeks or something like that. And suddenly we're talking about products and not projects. And that changes the game, because many of these, the small and medium-sized companies, they first of all need to, what am I talking about? A robot, that sounds expensive. But if you suddenly can say, well, this is it. This is a palletizer that can go in and help me do this. And we have a company here that can come and give me that at this price, at this time. And actually, because it's a standard product, the risk is relatively low because this is what it can do, nothing else. And that's really it. And that's what we see in a handful, maybe 10 different kind of applications where we are at that level. And now it's really about maturing that even more and expanding that to even more application domains. And if we just take the palletizing example, there is many things being put on pallets. So that just that application space is enormous. So, and again, we're talking worldwide. So many opportunities there.
You said, 10 or so, to handful of applications are out there. More and more partners are discovering the beauty of lowering transaction costs, which is configuration, quotation and what have you, because it's highly standardizable. There's low risk involved, and they rather pump the number of units they sell. You talked about the power of your ecosystem of partners. How many are there overall in the ecosystem? And you seem to have also a special program that you call UR Plus. So could you tell us a little bit what that is and how you manage it?
Yeah, so we have around 1,200 partners worldwide that are between the category that we talked about in the beginning of this. So the OEMs, the system integrators, and these technology providers. And then we have distribution partners as well that are purely sales organizations doing that. In total, 1,200 across the whole world. The technology partners we have put into a program which we call UR Plus. Plus because they are adding something to our universal robot. So either the grippers or something like that. So that's the UR Plus. And what we really try to do there, so how do we enable them to be successful? So first of all, it's about how can they develop the right products that fits in the very best way into our solution. And for us, it's of course, we have all these nice interfaces, but we also really want to make sure that they build a product that is easy to use by the one that will buy our products and their products. So if a system integrator out there are saying, I want to build a solution for a customer with our cobot and a hand from one of these UR Plus partners, we want to make sure that it just fits together. When you plug it in, it just works. It's very easy to configure it and all of this. So we really want to, we build a program where we go and help our partners from a business development point of view, from a technical point of view, in really building that product that fits into our ecosystem, that fits what the customer is needing. And then we're helping them to get it out there and spread the message, really. And that's the program that we have. And then we in some way, we're actually saying, we're replicating that across the other domains as well. So our OEMs building turnkey solutions. How can we do the same for them? How can we go out there and support them in building the turnkey solution? How can we make sure that they take the maximum out of the platform that we have, utilize that the best way, but also how do we understand the limitations that our platform sets to them so we can adjust that in future iterations of the platform. So we really are trying to be the best platform for our ecosystem so they continue coming back and being successful, so we're successful.
Well, what I think you really showcase is some of the interesting challenges of applying these business models, the platform business models, to these more complex B2B cases. I mean, we're very familiar with how platforms have scaled in the retail space, but we're talking usually about things that are being sold that have a fixed price, very discreet, and therefore easy to put on a website, easy for the customer to understand what it is. But you're describing a much more complex set of capabilities that need to be brought together, both physical, software, and design into the digital realm. And how do you standardize a solution?
I agree, and I would love to be out there offering a really cool e-com marketplace where customers could go in and just find exactly the solution that they needed and press buy, and we're there, right? That would be great. We're not there yet, right? There is a lot of things in that. There is the maturity of the products. There is, of course, the customer's understanding. And then we need to remember, we are not selling a TV set, right? We are selling a cobot solution to maybe 100,000 USD or whatever. So it's, you don't just buy that with a swipe of credit card. But at least what we can do, and what we really are striving to, is to make sure that we build these digital platforms that allow the potential customers to come to us and find the right ecosystem partner. How can we help our customer in expressing their need? How will we make Alex's friend that do beer come in and say, well, I want to take these bottles and put it on that pallet. How did he explain that? How do he tell us all the right information in a language that he understands, so that we can tell, well, if that's your problem or if that's your need, then you should talk to this partner or this partner. And these are the solutions that they are looking at. And how can we tie that together? And obviously, that's an important first step. And if we can nail that one,
is the amount of innovation around platform business models that are required in order to turn this industry into a industry that is applicable to platform business models. It sounds to me like 10 years ago it had been very difficult, right? You needed that expertise, you needed that hands-on, you needed systems integrators to come up with those solutions. But we're now, if I hear you correctly, we're now getting to the point where a lot of solutions now are pretty standardized, at least in some areas like welding and palletizing. And so these platform business models are quite applicable, and we're going to see more digital platforms selling these solutions, which is going to expand the growth of this industry. I mean, what I've seen is that this industry is growing at a CAGR of 10%, which is triple global GDP. So this is a pretty fast growing industry.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if you look at Tesla, I think 10 years ago, nobody would have imagined that you bought a car online, right? Now people do it happily. And again, that cost kind of, at least, it's probably more expensive than many of our cobot solutions, right? Maybe not. But at least it's comparable, right? So you can say today, you say, well, people will not go in and buy a robot solution that way. But why not?
I mean, that's the role of a platform, ultimately, to create that trust layer and this transparency, and take the transaction costs down, take the risk out, and then this will happen, no doubt about it. I still remember the old days when people say you can't buy shoes online. Guess what we're doing today? But what I think is interesting, you mentioned 2 times platform. So one is the Cobot OS, which is a technical platform, which you, I think, also call on Cobot. Then you have this platform of solutions that you're starting to grow. And once you have this level of enough partners that are enabled and willing to provide turnkey solutions that are priced, then you can move to the next level, which is what Peter and I are so excited about, the platform business model. So it's 3 times platform almost, right?
Yep. And here the question, of course, is what's our role in that? Because as we talked about, if we keep on your example, Alex, of your beer manufacturer, will they ever come to me to look for a solution, or will they come somewhere else? And that's really the good question in that. So yes, there's no question that we believe that we have the best cobot platform to build all these solutions, and we will do our best to continue being the very best one out there and have the big market shares that we have. No question about that. We want to make sure that we have the best ecosystem around us, and that's really, really important, and really want to do that. But the question really is this digital platform that is fronting the customer. What's that really? Could that be us? Could that be someone else? Could that be someone that is not, that is robot agnostic? Is it something that has nothing to do with robot at all? Is it the Amazons of the world? Is that where you go in the future? I think that's a very interesting question.
The cool thing is that the solution is ultimately the value creation unit that you trade and match on the platform, because you're not looking for an arm, you're not looking for a gripper, you're looking what you call plug and produce. Maybe that's what ultimately is going to be transacted, and there will be guys doing it out there, because we see Peter has just put out a white paper on industrial robots. We do see platform solutions out there. We do see even circular platform solutions out there. And we both believe a lot in the second mover disadvantage. So there is a race. You're super well equipped. And we are really curious to see where are the beer manufacturers like mine going to go ultimately to find their solution.
I agree, but I think one of the things that haven't been cracked yet is the platforms that you are talking about are domain platforms. So they still talk to the same kind of people. And if we really are, as you stated from our website, going out to provide automation for everyone, everywhere, we need to talk to different people. And how do you talk to those people? Because they will not come to our trade shows. They will not come to our partners' trade shows, right? That's a different beast. And it's really, how do you take it to that level? That's really the B2C kind of play in some way. So you really need to to democratize access to not cobots, but to an automation solution. And that's where, back to the question that I had before about the humanoids, that's where that actually is helping us, because suddenly it becomes very, very B2C kind of thing, right? And that's where you start saying, what is really the right solution for me to automate this? Because apparently you can automate it. You can apparently automate everything. And that's where if you come with our solution game, our partners, and say, well, hey, this here, you can very easily automate. You will be up and running in no time, and it will run forever. And maybe we're not saying that, but at least it runs for a long time. Then that's probably more appealing than something else. And then that's an interesting play.
That's actually a good final thought. You just said it's going to run forever. Well, we're not going to say that. How long do cobots typically last, and what are the longest lasting ones? And is there a multi-life for a cobot after having stopped the work at my beer manufacturer?
There could be, right? So I think the first cobots that we did, obviously, we didn't design for remanufacturing or recycling or anything like that. But the cobots that we produce today are designed for that. So it means that we do refurbish cobots. So we have customers that send in their cobots, and so a manufacturing plant typically change in what they produce. They may move their factory around and all this stuff. So they suddenly have the equipment. And they kind of want to reuse that again. And it's quite normal practice that people send in their cobots so they can be remanufactured. And we even have some of our, especially our resell channel, that do that, and then they sell out the used cobots and that. It's not something that we yet, at least, have taken up and are doing actively, but it's certainly something that could be done and do that. But I think that could be probably very interesting when we come to the next phase where it's getting more democratized. Because our old school friends that are really working in automation, they would not dream about buying a used cobot. They need to get the new shiny one. And again, we need to remember that we are just part of the equation. So it's not. So we're just the platform, and you need to add all the other stuff on top. So when we say a cobot solution costs $100,000, there's only a subset of that is the cost of the cobot. So what? In terms, if we just look at the price, how much saving is it actually generating if it's just the cobot is being recycled? So here, the most value for the buck would actually be if we offer the solution as a recyclable solution. And that's where really all the interesting... Exactly, right. This is where the as-a-service model comes in and becomes so interesting, because then you could have our palletizing partners could sell their palletizer on pay per pallet packed or something like that. And suddenly that will be very interesting for your beer manufacturer, because that will be very easy to go and actually look at the business case and say, well, hey, I only pay every time I do that. So that could do that. So that's clearly an interesting, but equipment as a service or solutions as a service is something that has been tested and debated in the industry for a decade or more. And I don't think there's a few companies that probably are successful in this, but there's a lot more that have failed and haven't succeeded in it. So it's not completely nailed yet, but there is a lot of attractiveness in that we certainly also are keeping an eye on.
Cool. Right. That's a beautiful finish. I was going to ask the last question. We have almost 2025, 5 years down the road, already 2030. What do you think? I think we don't need to ask it. You painted a picture of the future.
Automation for everyone, everywhere. That's the thing, right?
A Christmas tree. Everybody needs to have a universal robots cobot at home.
Yep.
That make it really B2C. Jesper, thank you very much. That was truly inspiring. Also for B2B in general. This is such an exciting place to be at, and combining business model, technology, and operating model. You are one of those prime examples. Thanks for being here, and we wish you all the best.
It was a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate your time and explaining in detail some of the unique challenges that are associated with applying platform business models in this space. But it's pretty exciting and a lot of innovation that is still needed. So really appreciate learning more about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for all your comments, sharing, liking, and recommending this video podcast. And we hope you come back when we say
Platform
Disco.
Dieser Podcast wird produziert von Lenart Media, deiner Agentur für Business Podcasts.